I fear not the dark itself, but what may lurk within it. Welcome to Lurk, bringing you creepy, strange, and bone-chilling stories, with your host, Jamie Jackson.
Hey Lurkers, welcome to this week's episode. This week we are finishing our trek through Pennsylvania on the Haunted Trail with part 3. You do not need to listen to parts 1 and 2 before listening to part 3, but I do recommend listening, and honestly it flows a little bit better if you start with part 1. For anyone just joining us, we have a series called The Haunted Trail that we present here and there. The Haunted Trail is a collection of creepy stories, paranormal stories, alien UFO stories, murders, missing people, basically whatever we talk about on the podcast. These stories are from along the Appalachian National Scenic Trail, or the Appalachian Trail, or simply just the AT. The Appalachian Trail travels through 14 states on the east coast of the USA. We've already covered Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, and today we will be completing Pennsylvania, which is state number 7. And that means we are halfway there. Oh, living on a prayer. Sorry, I can't help it. If you only knew how many times I really stopped myself from breaking out into song, you would be incredibly pleased and proud of me. Just saying. In 2023, the official length of the trail is 2,198.4 miles. The length varies year to year as new trail is added to bypass towns, roads, or other obstacles. More than 3 million visitors walk a portion of the AT each year. The AT has hundreds of access points and is within a few hours' drive of millions of Americans, making it a popular destination for day hikers. Through hikers walk the entire trail in a continuous journey. Section hikers piece the entire trail together over years. Flip-floppers through hike the entire trail in a discontinuous section to avoid crowds or extremes in weather, or to start on easier terrain. 1 in 4 who attempt a through hike successfully completes the journey. Most through hikers walk north, starting in Georgia, in spring, and finishing in Maine in the fall, taking an average of 6 months. Foods high in calories and low in water weight, such as Snickers bars and ramen noodles, are popular with backpackers who can burn up to 6,000 calories a day. Hikers usually adopt trail names while hiking the trail. They are often descriptive or humorous. Examples are Eternal Optimist, Thunder Chicken, and Crumb Snatcher. My current trail name is Badass, not because I am one, but because I have one. My son's trail name is Chuckwagon, because he would always want to know what food everyone had, how much food that they had, and when exactly we were stopping for snacks and lunch. So let's get started. We were just about ready to enter the area of Swatara State Park when we ended last week. The park is located on the Schuylkill and Lebanon County border, off of Route 443. It is an undeveloped state park, so there are no set trails or facilities of note. The park is unique in that even though you are only 3 miles or so from Route 78, you feel as you progress deeper into the park that you are truly in the middle of nowhere. One cool thing is that you can dig for fossils in the fossil pit close to the entrance to the park. Fossils aren't the only interesting thing in the area of the park, however. Back in October of 1910, a strange creature was spotted in Swatara Creek by numerous witnesses. Some of them attempted to kill the monster by shooting at it, but did not kill it. The following story appeared in the Harrisburg Telegraph on October 15, 1910. Ben Noggles Church, PA, October 15th. Last night, a party composed of 15 men and boys, all of them armed, set out in quest of the strange animal that is alleged to have its lair in the cavern along the Swatara Creek. The net results of the expedition is that one member of the party claims that he got a glimpse of the mysterious monster and fired a shot at it and missed. That is, he presumes that he failed to hit the beast, as he claims that it shook its head savagely and ran away. Another member of the party verifies this story and says the animal disappeared in Adam Bolt's meadow. This morning, another party, comprising 20 men, visited the vicinity of the cave. While several were watching the place, a cry was heard, and the watchers turned and saw the creature bathing in the Swatara, a short distance south of where they were standing. Several shots were fired, but all were without effect. Members of this party described the creature as an animal weighing between 200 and 300 pounds, light in color and having a sandy head. Mr. Malfair, a reputable citizen, asserts that he has seen the mysterious visitor running about in Mr. Rasp's meadow between Swatara and the Quitapafilla. I have no idea if I said that right. At one farm in the vicinity, heads of 23 chickens were found. Some lay the slaughter to the beast, and others say it would not take the bodies and leave the heads. Others claim that they have watched the cave on the Swatara and have seen nothing in the shape of an animal in that vicinity, except chipmunks. The monster sounds a lot like a Bigfoot-type creature, as many descriptions mention the creature being ape-like. Also in the area of Swatara State Park is a reported headless horseman that's seen riding around in the area. He's said to ride all over the Lebanon Valley. I'm guessing he's looking for his head, but I don't know for certain because I was unable to find any other details about that particular legend. And that brings us to the area of Hamburg, home of the giant Cabela store, among other things, like the 5 lock section of the Schuylkill Canal. The Schuylkill Canal, or Schuylkill Navigation, was a system of interconnected canals and slackwater pools along the Schuylkill River in Pennsylvania. It was built as a commercial waterway in the early 19th century. Chartered in 1815, the navigation opened in 1825 to provide transportation and water power. At the time, the Schuylkill River was the least expensive and most efficient method of transporting bulk cargo. Along the towpaths, mules pulled barges of coal from Port Carbon through the water gaps to Pottsville, locally to the port and markets of Philadelphia, and some then by ship or through additional New Jersey waterways to New York City markets. The Schuylkill Canal was in operation until 1931 and was almost completely filled in the 1950s. Some remaining watered reaches are now used for recreation. The 5 lock section of the canal is said to be haunted by the lockmaster's daughter, who fell or jumped off the edge of the locks and drowned. Her ghost is seen hovering over the water or walking along the towpath. She moves her head slowly as if she's looking for someone. The Lenni Lenape tribe had a legend about supernatural beings that roamed the Schuylkill River in the form of glowing lights. Many sightings of these glowing orbs have been reported and are compared to St. Elmo's fire or the Foo Fighters of World War II fame, which we covered in an episode, so check it out. With the natural mountain barrier, jagged rock outcroppings, and dense underbrush, the Schuylkill Gap of the 1700s near what is now Molino and Port Clinton was almost impenetrable. At the time, the fast-moving waters of the Schuylkill defied boat traffic, and the superstitious Native Americans prevented the development of any of their footpaths. Known to the Native Americans as the Valley of Seven Winds, the area near Port Clinton was supposedly voodoo because of the ways the valleys and waterways came together to form the natural gap. One resident of the area once reported being awakened from a sound sleep by the sounds of Indians chanting as though they were performing a dance ritual or some sort of powwow in the hollow beneath her home. Further north on the trail is the area of the Pinnacle and Pulpit Rock. There's a cave in the area of the Pinnacle that has a reputation of being haunted. In the early 1900s, around 1918-ish or so, it was thought by the locals that this cave was haunted because they could sometimes hear screaming coming from it. There was also a legend that a dragon lived in the cave. One story claims that there was a Native American burial in the back of the cave. Though I doubt the burial story, there were Native Americans all over that area, and perhaps they're still wandering around there. One woman was hiking with her son when they heard the distinct sound of a wooden flute being played. The music was off in the distance, but then grew closer and louder. There was no one there playing a flute or any other instrument. Spooked, they hurried further down the trail. But further along the trail doesn't mean you're not going to encounter something else. In the area of Eckville, drivers have seen a long line of silent, single-file men, women, and children in antique costume, their heads hanging low in sorrow, coming from a winding road off the mountain. There are also shadowy Indian guards seen with them, carrying long rifles. When the drivers get close, the people disappear. Many believe it's a vision of the captives who were taken from their homes and taken into Canada. The next area along Hawk Mountain also has a ton of spirits still roaming the area. And I'll come clean, there's more murder. There's a lot of murder along this trail. It's just a murder trail. Pennsylvania's just the murder trail, the Appalachian Trail. Hawk Mountain was the sacred grounds of the Lenni Lenape tribe. During the French and Indian War, several settler families were massacred by Native Americans. In 1756, they massacred the Gerhardt family, who lived in a cabin on the hill. Ghosts have been seen roaming the area at night. Among those recorded was the 1757 killing of the Hochstetler family. A young son, Jacob, escaped and lived to tell the story. In the 1890s, a man by the name of Matthias Schombacher bought the land and built a new home where the Hochstetler cabin had been. Schombacher turned the dwelling into an inn. People said you could hear ghostly footsteps coming to the door and stopping. Strange sounds were heard in the barn, and the horses bolted on a regular basis. Flashing lights and wailing sounds were continuously coming from the woods. Schombacher eventually confessed to killing at least 11 people that had stopped at his inn, robbing them and then burying them in the woods. He claimed he was driven to do it by a voice whispering in his ear. He was buried in an unmarked grave, and his ghost now wanders the cemetery. Another person bought the property, and locals went to his home one day to check on him. They found the door torn off its hinges and the rooms in a shamble. The owner's mangled body was found days later. In the years following, it is said that 2 mountain men, hermits, lived and died under mysterious circumstances, and that their spirits roam Hawk Mountain and the trail. Native American legend has it that the mountain was enchanted by the spirits of their ancestors. In 1938, the area was made into a bird sanctuary. People still hear wailing and see strange lights on the hillside. There have also been reports of seeing a strange figure that is 10 feet tall and glows. Those who have seen the apparition claim that it radiates pure evil. I have visited the bird sanctuary at Hawk Mountain. I did not have any paranormal experiences, but I did see a lot of cool raptors and vultures as they were migrating. It's definitely a recommended place to visit. Further north is Bake Oven Knob. This Blue Mountain overlook might not strike hikers as a particularly eerie spot, and any unsettling feeling could just be the elevation. But a story says that a hiker was reported missing here and never found. The woman's apparition is said to continue to roam the Appalachian Trail nearby. Near a rocky outcropping of rocks, people have reported hearing noises and whispers. Legend says that a hiker fell from the rocks and died. It's unclear if the hiker who died is the same as the hiker who was lost and never found, though it seems like it's 2 separate events. Today, the forest seems to defy the rules of normal daylight. It gets extremely dark after walking just a couple of feet in, even while it's still light out. But that's not all. A group staying at the Bake Oven Knob shelter saw a huge shadowy entity 500 feet away from the shelter coming up Kittanini Ridge in the middle of the night. It frightened them so much that they rolled up their sleeping bags, stuffed their gear into their rucksacks, and stumbled up the trail in the darkness, rather than wait to get close up and personal with their visitor. A frightful creature has been associated with the area since the days of the Delaware Indians. It's known as the Bake Knob Beast. No one has ever been able to describe it with any more detail than as a glowing red-eyed blob. Another description is a 10-foot tall black mass with red eyes. No matter how it's described, the beast has been around since the time of the Lenni-Lenape Indians. There was a brief mention of a phantom wolf that roams the Appalachian Trail in the area of Lehigh Furnace Gap, which is the next area on our trek. There isn't much information about it other than it patrols along the Appalachian Trail. I don't know about phantom wolves, but there have been reports of a werewolf-like creature along the AT. Many people have seen a creature that is 6 to 7 feet tall and has a wolfish head. One report claimed the creature's hind legs were very muscular, and when it stood in an almost kangaroo manner. The head is dog or wolf-like, with small pointed ears and clawed hands. If you've listened to episode 47 about Maryland Monsters, the Canine Edition, you might recognize this werewolf description as the same as the Maryland Deweyyo. In that episode, we talked about the Hexenwolfen, which were not exactly werewolves, but more like witches who had charms allowing them to shapeshift into a wolf-like creature. Either way, it's not something I want to encounter while hiking, especially if I'm sleeping in a 3-sided shelter. Another creature seen throughout Pennsylvania and the Appalachian Trail is the Thunderbird, or Hino, as the Iroquois Confederacy calls them. They have been sighted since back before the European settlers even arrived in America. It's said to be a giant winged creature with wings so large it sounds like thunder when they fly past. Native Americans believed they could morph into human form by tilting their beaks like a mask. Some believe they are guardians and good omens, while others believe they are warlike and predatory. No place has close to the number of Thunderbird sightings as Pennsylvania does. The sightings date back to the early 19th century. Most sightings occur in state forest and game lands, the kind of areas the Appalachian Trail travels through in Pennsylvania. The Thunderbirds have a 15 to 20 foot wingspan and stand 4 to 8 feet tall. They're dark colored, usually brown, gray, or black. They've been known to try and carry off dogs and small children, and some witnesses claim to have seen them pick up a deer. There's another curious creature that was sighted in the state. Some refer to it as Bat Squatch. One night while driving home, a man saw a creature hunched down near the road. When it stood, it was a tall, muscular creature about 8 feet tall. Its skin was smooth like leather and was a light brown color. It was humanoid, but had a ridge running down its head. Its arms were very muscular and slightly longer than a human's. Its legs were extremely muscled and were strange, like they bent backwards. It had clawed hands and a wolf-like face with yellow eyes. The strangest part was that it had a pair of large wings folded on its back. I don't really know that I would say that was the strangest part. Bat Squatch was originally sighted in Washington State around Mount Rainier and Mount Adams. Is it possible that the creature has found a home in Pennsylvania? Or is it one of those shape-shifting thunderbirds the Iroquois warned us about? We're nearing the end of the trail in Pennsylvania as we get to the area known as the Delaware Water Gap. In this area, there's a rumor of some buried treasure. In 1915, a copper strongbox with $30,000 in gold coins was being transported by Pennsylvania Railroad paymaster by canoe through flooded Delaware Water Gap. The paymaster became suddenly violently ill and rowed the canoe to shore. He buried the chest near a cliff and then made his way to a railroad camp. Upon finally making it to the camp, he told the men there his story of getting ill and burying the chest, and then he had a heart attack and died. The strong box with the coins was never found. Near the area of Delaware Water Gap is Mount Minzy. Mount Minzy is 1,460 feet high and is named for the Munsee, or people of the Stony Country, the most northerly group of Lenni Lenape's Wolf clan. Princess Winona was the much-loved daughter of Chief Wisinoming, the leader of the Munsee, also known as the Minnesink. Winona was said to be a great beauty, strong and kind. Eventually, Dutch settlers came to the area to establish copper mines. A young Dutchman named Hendrik van Allen was sent to oversee the operation of the mines. Winona was well liked amongst the women of the settlement. She eventually met Hendrik, and the two became fast friends. They shared many interests and often would go hunting together. Eventually, the chief died, and the tensions between the Minnesink Indians and the Dutch settlers grew, especially after a young settler was killed. In an attempt to resolve the conflict, Winona suggested sacrificing herself in return for the loss of the young settler. The settlers refused to accept her offer as they loved her and did not want her to sacrifice her life. Hendrik and Winona's friendship grew as he shared stories of his travels to other countries. Winona, wanting to share her own world and experiences, took Hendrik to see the panoramic view of her land. They agreed to meet at the cliff when he returned to the settlement after his trip to a nearby town. During his meetings, Hendrik learned that the mining operations were going to be stopped and he would have to return to Europe. When they met at the cliff, Hendrik was unusually quiet, upset that he would have to tell his love he was leaving. When Hendrik revealed his news, Winona stood and delivered a speech that ended with, "Farewell, brother, tutor, lover, Winona's sun has set forever." She then walked to the edge of the cliff. Hendrik ran to her, hugging her in his arms, trying to save Winona from taking her life, but the two stumbled, and they fell to their deaths, embraced in each other's arms. Today, people claim to see two large balls of fire falling from the cliff, the souls of the two lovers burning brightly for each other in death. How many star-crossed Native American lovers have I covered in the Haunted Trail? Let me know. Up to this point, I know there was another one in North Carolina. At least. Another area near the Delaware Water Gap is Shawnee on Delaware and the Shawnee Inn. The inn originally opened in 1911 as the Buckwood Inn, then it became the Shawnee Inn in 1943. Prior to that, the land was Lenni Lenape land, and today there are reports from guests and staff that the inn is haunted. There's a ghost of a woman who is seen floating through the lobby into the dogwood dining room. Guests and employees hear whispered conversation, followed by screams in the bar, and the ladies' restroom is heard being used, but there's no one there. There have been reports of other eerie sounds and cold chills. One employee heard the ballroom doors rattling and went to investigate. He saw the doors shaking, but there was no one there. One night, a shadow was seen moving back and forth across the window of the kitchen doors. The sighting was followed by loud crashing noises. When someone went to investigate, they found random items from different shelves had been thrown to the middle of the floor. There is no explanation as to why the hotel is haunted, and nothing stands out in the brief history of the inn that is available. And finally, on this trek, we're going to talk about Bigfoot. I opted to save all the sightings from along the Appalachian Trail and share them all together in one section. Pennsylvania is actually considered a top Bigfoot sighting area. At one time, it was ranked number 3 in the top Bigfoot sightings list. Michaud State Forest, which we visited in the beginning of our series on the Haunted Trail in Pennsylvania, is listed as a Bigfoot hotspot. A woman heard whoops and wood knocks and saw footprints in and around her property that bordered Michaud. In another account, 2 men found several hundred large, unusually shaped footprints in the mud at the north end of the Waynesboro Reservoir. Large crowds were later attracted to the area, and the BFRO investigated. Another witness had this account from when they were out camping at night. Near the edge of a rock face called Brown Rock during the night, while I had my small campfire, I kept feeling like I was being watched but could never see anything. About 30 yards from where my hammock was set up, there's a nice flat spot. Half an hour after putting out my fire, Leaves were brushed about, with branch snaps being heard for about 15 minutes. It ended with a loud grunt, small roar, then took off full speed through the woods, letting out the sound 2 more times. It was fast in the forest. It was a little after midnight, and the footfalls were very heavy. It left for about 10 minutes, only to return and repeat the same actions as before, with the brush, for about another 10 to 15 minutes, and then it was gone. I never heard it come back or leave. In another area, a woman and her father found unusual barefoot tracks while hiking near the Conococheague Creek. Another man hunting found 17-inch length by 7-inch wide barefoot tracks in a remote area. And 2 men hunting mushrooms heard large logs and sticks breaking. They found 2 defined footprints along the creek bed. The prints were 8.5 inches long by 6 inches wide and 2.5 inches deep. This account came in from an area near Michaud State Forest. It reads, I live in a fairly remote part of Adams County, Pennsylvania, and the event in question occurred near my house in the Michaud State Forest, near Tick-Tock and Pine Ridge Lane. The forest here is mainly white pines and oak. It is at a high elevation, and there are enormous amounts of mountain laurel and high rhododendron. This morning I woke for a morning bow hunt. When I left my house to walk the half-mile or so to an area I had seen some deer sign previously, I noticed that the weather was going to be perfect. There wasn't any wind at all, and it was cool, so the ground was crunchy. While walking to my stand in the dark, I got maybe 200 yards from my stand, and I heard this noise that scared the hell out of me. It was sort of like a howl. I had never heard anything like it before in my life. I tried to rationalize it as a wild dog or coyote and continued on. A short while later, I was 25 feet up in my stand watching the woods around me as the sun came up. Shortly after daybreak, I heard several deer crashing through the laurel towards me. I readied my bow, and 4 does came running within 15 yards. They appeared to be spooked by something. A couple minutes, or so it seemed, later, I heard more crunching coming towards me. I again got myself ready in case a buck was following. The noise that was approaching was kind of strange. It sounded more deliberate as it closed in. I saw several flashes of brown hair through the thick laurel, and then I saw it. It was no deer. It was a bipedal creature about 7 to 8 feet tall. As it ran by me, it never stopped. I noticed it had matted hair all over. By this point, I had nearly shit a brick. Then I heard more sounds coming toward me. 2 more Bigfoots were approaching very fast. These stopped, and I got a fairly good look at them. One appeared to be substantially smaller than the first one, and it was dragging a baby Bigfoot along with it. These also fled the area very quickly, and it seemed as though they were following the largest one. After all Sasquatchian activity ceased, I sat in my seat and checked my pants. I was scared to death. I also noticed the Bigfoots left a foul, garbage-like odor behind. Finally, I gathered myself enough to get down the tree and back home. I have not returned to this spot since I had that multiple Bigfoot encounter. Since that event, I have seen other evidence of activity here. I think this area is full of Bigfoots. There was a man who was out fishing that made eye contact with a 7-foot-tall, dark brown creature, taking large strides and moving quickly away. The distance was 90 yards and lasted about 3 seconds. Sometime around 7 p.m., a woman was relaxing in the woods when she heard grunts and a commotion. Then a large rock was thrown in her direction, narrowly missing her and landing nearby. I had my own weird incident at Michaud while hiking the Rocky Knob Shelter Trail. There were 4 hikers in our group, 3 adult females and 1 adolescent male, my son. We were hiking downhill towards a large boulder field area when I began feeling uneasy, like I was being watched. It felt, too, like someone was following along with us and stopping when we stopped. I never saw a thing, just felt that neck-tingling sensation when you can feel you're being watched and smelling a strong, pungent odor. That trail is the trail that Rebecca White was murdered on, and I can say the whole place has a heavy feeling associated with it. The Bigfoot encounters continue. 2 a.m. in Boiling Springs, some friends out camping noticed that the area had gone quiet, and then they heard a very unique noise. They said it wasn't a noise they were familiar with at all. At Fort Indiantown Gap, a 10-year-old kid and his neighbors saw an 8 to 9 foot tall creature covered in white hair behind a light pole about 30 to 40 yards away. Near Hawk Mountain, a man encountered an 8-foot tall, brownish-black-haired, barrel-chested creature observing him build a camp at 35 yards away. He later heard screams and found footprints in the area. Near the Eagle Nest Shelter, a man hunting with his father and grandfather was confronted by a 7-foot-tall creature with dark brown hair at about 50 yards. The man fired his shotgun over the creature's head, and it fell down. Afterward, it just got up and ran off into the woods. Carbon County, north of Bake Oven Knob Shelter, around 3 a.m., a man camping there heard loud crunching footsteps approaching his camp. He also heard what sounded like wood rolling around and metal wires contacting the ground. He looked out but never observed any headlights from another hiker. The area in question was large, jagged rocks. Another man camping along the Appalachian Trail heard something bipedal approach his tent. It threw pine cones and rocks at the tent before moving back and forth and then walking past it and hitting the tent. 30 seconds after, another bipedal thing walked past the tent and then screamed and whistled. Both unknown creatures went into the swamp area. A man found tracks of footprints in the snow measuring 16.5 inches long with a stride length of 6.5 feet. 5 days later, he spotlighted a figure moving at a distance of 300 yards. He and his father then drove closer and spotlighted it again in the reeds near a pond. They estimated the eye shine was 7.5 to 8 feet off the ground. And with that, we are done with the Pennsylvania section of the Appalachian Trail. The next time we hit the trail, we will be trekking through New Jersey, so stay tuned for that sometime in the future. Remember, you can find Lurk wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and also at lurkpodcast.com, where you can find episodes along with links to our social media pages. We also have a YouTube channel if you prefer to listen that way, and make sure you like and subscribe. If you'd like a little more Lurk in your life, you can become a loyal lurker at Patreon for $5 a month, help out the show, and get a little extra content. And until next time, keep lurking.